Welcome to She Stitchin', this is Melanie. Thank you for joining me today to learn this really fun stitch called Textured Waves. If you're just wanting to learn this stitch, this tutorial will work for you, but this stitch video is part of a compilation, a whole bunch of videos to make a sample blanket where we have squares that are 30 stitches wide, and then we're going to sew them all together to make a sample blanket, and it's called Just Another Crochet Along. But if you're just wanting to learn the stitch, this video will also work for you. If you are doing the crochet along with us, you're going to need to have a 6.0 millimeter hook, and you're going to want to have a starting chain of 31. And if you're not doing the crochet along with us, you're going to want to have a starting chain of a multiple of 5 plus 1, and that's just for the turning chain. Now, in order to put all of our blankets together, we're going to want to have a straight border on the bottom. So it will be a little bit different, but I'll walk you guys through it. Before we get started, I always like to show a few samples. So the first one that I'm going to be using in the crochet along is out of an acrylic size 4 Caron Caron 1 pound. And these colors are the light sage, pale green, and the Cape Cod blue. And then I have some other samples to show you. So the first one I wanted to show you is just out of a variegated peaches and cream yarn. And so this is just in one yarn, but it's kind of fun to see what happens with the variegation. And then I also worked it up in a different length to see with a different cotton to see how that would pull out. So this is a one-sided stitch. From the back it just looks like ribbed straight stitches kind of. But then on the front side you get that really cool pattern. And it does kind of have like the texture here. That part of the stitch is raised. And then the last sample I want to show you, oh sorry, I have 2 more samples. So this next one is a Lime brand ice cream in cookies and cream color, and this one is really cool because it's a slow changing yarn, so you kind of looks like you have waves of different colors building up on each other, so that's pretty cool. And then I also I'm making a scarf using this stitch. This is a great stitch for a scarf or a blanket. So this is Lime Brand Landscape in Lagoon, and I used a much bigger size hook for this. It's a size 4 yarn, but I used a 9 millimeter hook, and I just am loving the way that this turns out. So I'm going to be making a full scarf using this stitch, but you can see it does look really cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'll meet you at the end of a chain 31. Okay, so let's talk about the stitch a little bit before we get started. So the stitch is using only slip stitches and half double crochets. So this section here, where we have the low section, are 2 rows of slip stitches on top of each other. And this section here is 2 rows of half double crochets on top of each other. So the way that so these are the slip stitches here, the skinny parts where it piles up, and then the wider sections, like I said before, are the half double crochets. Now on my ice cream sample, I did work the pattern up using single crochets and double crochets because a lot of people don't like using slip stitches. So you can see down here at the bottom, it's a very dramatic effect. But when you go up at the top, these last few rows of the lighter colors, it is using the single crochets. You can see here are single crochets and double crochets. So you still get the same effect, it's just less dramatic, and it's definitely a more loose. So I just wanted to share that with you before we started. Now in our pattern, we're going to want to have a straight edge on the bottom, but you can see it is possible to have a curved bottom if you put a full wave in at the bottom. So on the scarf here you can see It's kind of hard because it's loose, but this is like the dip down of a wave and then it come back up. So you can also do this stitch that way, but because we want to have straight borders, oh man, because you want to have, sorry, I got the yarn stuck on something here. Because you want to have the straight borders, we're going to start in the middle of one of the waves. So I'm going to be working this up today in a peaches and cream yarn, and this is called Emerald Energy, sorry. And I like this yarn. It's 100% USA cotton, made in Canada, peaches and cream, and like I said, this is the Emerald Energy color. So it is a cotton yarn, so it's not going to stretch as much. And if you're doing this, if you're familiar with slip stitches, or if this is your first time doing them, just make sure that you keep them nice and loose. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to go back with your next row. And that is the reason why I'm using a 6mm hook. A lot of our patterns have been using much smaller hooks. But I would recommend a larger hook. Now you can see this is matching up here in the back with our other squares. So this is our Ocean Waves square, and this was made with a 3.5mm hook. So you can see that still using that big hook, it's still going to give you a nice tight stitch with no gaps or anything because of the slip stitches, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So we have our starting chain of 31, and then what we're going to do is we're going to skip the first chain, and then we're going to go back. Let me just make sure this chain is nice and loose, like I said before, because you want to make sure that this is a loose stitch, otherwise you're going to have a really hard time, especially using a cotton yarn, because it's not going to stretch as much as an acrylic. Okay, so we're going to skip one, and then go into the next, and we're just going to do a slip stitch. So you just insert your hook, yarn over, and pull it back through both loops. Okay, we're going to do that a total of 5 times. So 1, and then into the next back bump, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay, so just 5 slip stitches, and then we're going to do 5 half double crochets. So the half double crochet is an American term, and you're just going to yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over again, pull through 1 loop, then yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, so we're going to do that a total of 5 times. So 1 time, 2, 3. Sorry, it's always a little bit hard to get into that starting chain. 4 and 5, and then we're going to go back and we're going to do just keep repeating that. So 5 slip stitches and then 5 half double crochets until you reach the end of the starting chain. So go ahead and pause your video and finish that up. 1, 2, 3, and I will meet you at the end and the beginning of row 2. Okay, so here we are at the end, and you can see I have 5 slip stitches, 5 half double crochet, 5 slip stitches, 5 half double crochet, 5 slip stitches, and then I finished it off with 5 half double crochets. Now in order to get the straight bottom, we're going to go ahead and start row 2. And if you're trying to have the curved bottom, this will be your first row. Okay, so we're going to start off again with just a chain 1 for our turning chain. And then we're going to do 5 slip stitches, but the way that we get this cool texture ridge is by using back loop only. So normally on a crochet stitch, let me tilt this a little bit for you, you have this front loop here and then the back loop. So in order to get this texture, this little ridge, we're going to be working only into the back loop. So that's going to be the same throughout the whole pattern, okay? So when you insert your hook, instead of going under front loop and back loop like you normally would, we're going to just be going under the back loop. And that's how we create that really cool texture. So that's the whole pattern. Every row will be back loop only. A few weeks ago we did the millstone stitch here in the background, which is like a similar concept, except we used both loops. So that's why this one is nice and flat, or totally flat, and this one you get those raised stitches, or the raised edges there. Okay, so let's chain 1 and turn for row 2, and then we're going to start off by doing 5 slip stitches. And that's because we want to keep the border straight, so we're going to be like starting in the middle of a wave, okay? So just go ahead and do 5 slip stitches, and like I said, in the back loop only. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, and then we're going to do 5 half double crochets back loop only. So insert here. Now I'm working into those slip stitches, and the slip stitches are going to be a little bit harder to work into, and that's why it's really important that you keep a very loose tension on this stitch, so that you can go back and work into those slip stitches, because the slip stitches do get very tight if you don't keep it loose. Okay, so we're just going into the back loop. I'm excited to see how it comes out in this colors. All right, so that's 4 and 5, and then we're going to start with the 6 slip stitches again, and we're going to go into the back loop only. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see I'm not really pulling at this point. I'm keeping it loose. And 5. And then we're going to do 5 half double crochets. And we're just going to keep repeating that through the end of the pattern. So if you want to go ahead and push pause, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. Okay, now we've gotten to the end of the row. And you can see at this point it's almost about the same height as a double crochet would be. And it's looking pretty straight because the curves are blocking into each other. So right now, if you look at the 2 color, we just finished the dark and the light. Okay. So I think this is most dramatic with changing colors on solid yarn, but let's see how it turns out with this, okay? So now what we're going to do is chain 2 and turn, and that's going to count as a turning chain for a half double crochet. So we're going to skip the first front loop and back loop, and we're going to go into the second, and we're going to go into the back loop only, and we're going to do 4 half double crochets. So this is going to count as 1, so that's, and then 4, so that's how we'll get to that 5 number for the wave. So make sure you're going back loop only, and we're going to do 4 half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then we're going to do 5 slip stitches. Now these are going to be going into the other slip stitches, so as long as you're keeping this loose, it shouldn't be that hard, okay? 1, oops. 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. And then we're going to do 5 half double crochet. So you can see that it's a very easy repetition to follow. As long as you're keeping it loose, you should be good. So go ahead and finish this out, and I will meet you at the end of the row where we can talk about going forward. Okay, so I just finished that off, and you end with 5 slip stitches for the crochet long. And that's kind of the top of the wave. So now we're going to go back and do a next wave. So now we're on this dark blue section. So if you're doing this in a different size, it's important to kind of take a step back and look at the full picture. So we have the big part of the wave coming, and then the small wave. And we have the 2 stitches on top of each other. the 2 matching stitches on top of each other. So now we know it's time to switch it up for the next row. Okay, so we're going to do the same as the previous row. We're going to chain 2 for the turn, and then we're going to skip that first one and then do 4 half double crochet. So you will be able to find the written pattern for this project on my blog and the Facebook group. So please come to check out the Facebook group if you're on Facebook. It's a great place to share and make sure you get updates when the new stitches come out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. There we go. And then we're going to do the 5 slip stitches. So you can see 1, 2, for me, 3, 4, 5. Oh, sounds like one of my boys woke up. But for me, the easiest part for missing my count was on the slip stitches. So do make special care that you're getting 5 slip stitches in, because they're hard to go back and count. Okay, so go ahead and finish this row off with that same repetition of 5 slip stitches, then 5 half double crochets. And I will meet you at the end of this row. All right, so we finished off that row. I just finished that off with the 5 slip stitches, and you can see that the waves are starting to form there, looking pretty cool. So now you have everything that you need to know in order to finish up the pattern. Just remember that they are going to mirror each other every 2 rows. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put 5 slip stitches on top of these. So you just kind of have to take a look and look back. So you would do 5 slip stitches, then 5 half double crochet to make it big again. And like I said, the written pattern is available on my blog, and I'll put the link in the description. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you like all these tutorials, or you want to learn some of these in the background. The one in the middle in the background is the ocean waves, and that's a really beautiful stitch. That's double-sided and has a really cool texture. This one, it's been floating around my house for quite a while, so it's getting a little dingy, but it's a really cool stitch to do. And then this was a few weeks ago, the millstone stitch. So I pulled this one out because it had the name waves, but the millstone stitch was the same in how we used the stitches, changing the stitches and marrying each other to make those larger sections. And then this one's also called the ripple stitch. So I just wanted to pull those ones out because I thought they kind of related to today's pattern. If you have any questions, please let me know and comment down below. And also, if you want to just leave a comment on what you would like to use this stitch for, and if you've ever used it in the past, it would be great to have a little discussion with you guys. So feel free to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I hope that you're enjoying all of these, and I hope you have fun with them. So if you have any questions, like I said, ask them down below, and if not, I will see you next week. If anybody asks where I am, until then, just tell them she's stitching.